Hi, I'm Sandra Campos. I am so glad to be able to speak to everyone today from New York. I'm actually upstate New York. I have a horse farm that I bought a year and a half ago, thankfully before the pandemic hit, because since March 12th, I've been out here. Instead of being in Manhattan in the city apartment that I lived in for decades, I have been up here in nature with nature. And I have to say, after all these months, I'm very, very glad that I've had that opportunity to get out of the go-to-go day-to-day hustle and be able to really have some nature, have some greenery and have things. So hopefully every one of you guys has had health and safety and has had some nature to be able to commune with as well. So I have been, my life really from a career standpoint has fully been in retail and fashion. And I've been in the industry now for 30 years. Can't believe I'm saying that, but it is true. I grew up in Texas. I am a first generation Mexican American my parents are both from Mexico. And the story that I tell when I have any conversations with anyone, because I've really been able to appreciate this more in my life over the past 5 years, is that my parents were both entrepreneurs. They immigrated this country when they were very young. My father was 14, my mother was 18. They got married, had 6 kids together, but always were very entrepreneurial, both of them, in everything that they were doing. And so from a very early age, I saw a lot of different operational types of businesses, whether it was sales, which my father did a lot of, whether it was real estate, which my mother then turned into, the tortilla factory that we moved to Texas to be able to start and open. And our family and our kids, the kids would be there evenings, Saturdays. I would have to work on the production line. I would see packaging, truck logistics, pickups, and sales. And we had a retail store in the front. So I didn't realize at the time just how much that would impact my life. But it did. And obviously in a good way, because I was able to really continue down the entrepreneurial path, as well as from a company standpoint, and really growing and learning about business, about being a leader, about fashion, about the logistics of running a business across the board. And that's what my life has been. I started out when I left Texas to move to New York. I knew I wanted to be in fashion. There were really only 2 options for me at the time, and that was New York or LA. So I chose New York. And at the time, the CEOs and presidents of companies were coming out of sales. And I knew I wanted to be a CEO. I knew I wanted to be running a business. And that was from very early on in my life that I knew that. So I wanted to pursue that. And I had milestones and goals that I wanted to achieve, whether they were financial goals or whether they were title goals, whatever it was, I had those by a certain age. So I embarked on the path. I was very, very lucky at the time that I started in the industry. There were a lot of retailers. It was very different than it is today, but it was all about the power of a brand and understanding and learning about product and merchandising and the passion for fashion, which sounds a little cliche, but it's true. Passion for really understanding what is fashion. And fashion makes us get up, and fashion is your choices. And it defines not who you are, but it defines your style and who you want to be that day. And it's the experience that I've had with that, whether it was through Donna Karan, through my experience at Ralph Lauren, through my experience with Oscar de la Renta's brand or others that I've been a part of, and I've been very fortunate to be able to be a part of, I had learned so much about that, not just about color and prints and the shape of a woman's body, but who the consumer is from a business standpoint. 75% of the consumers are women. You know, we need to address that and understand. And it's one thing that I learned a lot when I was starting out in the industry as well, because at the time I was able to go around and travel all over the country. And I can tell you, I've been to Edina, Minnesota. I've been all over Wichita to Oklahoma City to Tulsa to, you know, places that many people wouldn't even dream of going today for business in fashion, because those stores don't exist anymore. But I was able to do that. And with that, I gained a lot of knowledge of the consumer and understanding what people need in different times. And the fact that, you know, the fact that we're selling wool product in August or shipping wool product in August, which is what we were doing in a lot of the businesses beforehand for Florida, when it doesn't matter because you're still wearing tank tops, you know, none of that made sense. So, you know, and we wouldn't, in Edina, Minnesota, as an example, there were certain weather patterns there that obviously it's going to be colder earlier, so they wouldn't have sweaters or coats in time. So all of those kind of rules that fashion just had just because it was part of our history, it caught up. So years and years later, now here we are in 2020 with a pandemic that really forced fashion to take a look at what we've been doing and taking a look at what the products are that we're delivering, who we're thinking about, how we're doing it, how much product we're putting out there. The last few years have been focused about sustainability. This generation between the millennials and Generation Z is advocating for change, is advocating for our environment, is advocating for climate change and making sure that there's a world that exists well beyond our generations. And fashion's a big part of that. And we have had to change. So we've been thinking about it. There have been steps that we've taken as an industry, but overall now with this pandemic, we've been forced to make changes. And those changes include, like, why are we delivering product 12 months out of the year? It's too much. Why do we have to create and I'm making these numbers up, but like 200 different pieces each and every single month? It was all about capitalistic gain and growing a business, but to what end? Because the consumers have changed. It used to be that we in fashion could dictate what you would wear based on what you saw in a magazine, based on what an editor would tell you was the right thing to do. It used to be that you could wear one designer head to toe. But as fast fashion came in 10, 12 years ago, it became bigger and bigger, H&M, Zara, Uniqlo, et cetera. You could start mixing things. So then the high-low started coming into play. You could wear Prada and Zara at the same time, and you could mix things. And then as social media started to come in and change, that changed everything. I started a business with Selena Gomez in 2009, my business partner, Tony, and I. And she was 15, going on 16 then. But we started a business that was something we believed in for her. We believed in her. We believed in really being able to address that category within the mass. We sold at the time, we had a six-year collaboration with her in Kmart stores in the States and then a couple of other countries. But my point on that is that when we did that in 2009, it was only Facebook. She had less than 1 million followers in 2009 on Facebook. There was no Instagram, there's no Snapchat, there's no TikTok. It didn't exist. So that education for me in and of itself was all about youth culture marketing and understanding what this generation wanted and authenticity. No one did it better and does it better than Selena herself in terms of authentic communication and building a community, building that fan base. So if you think about like this massive change that we've had just in a 10-year time period, now going on 11 years, but over the 10-year time period that social media has existed, now you have influencers and celebrities, and they have started to dictate what the right fashion is or what you want to get. And guess what? It's no longer about the seasons. It's no longer about like, this is it for spring, this is it for fall. It's an annual seasonless cycle. So fabrics started changing. And then you start to add sustainability into it in terms of new fabrications or recycling or, vintage products. And if you talk about resellers like ThreadUp, which is doing amazing, or RealReal, and the consumer's just wanting different things. They're not spending as much, so we don't have to make as much. They are living in different places. They're traveling more, so we need to be able to, from a fashion standpoint, create product that the customer needs at the time that they want it and at the time that they need it, and not be more piggish than that, I guess, in terms of really describing how large everything became. So we've been forced to make changes as an industry, and therefore, companies have been forced to make changes, and individuals have been forced to make changes too, to look at themselves and to say, is this really what I want to do? Is this where we're going to go? Obviously, we've all been impacted by this pandemic. Everyone around the world has been impacted. And whether you've lost your job or not, you still have had the opportunity to take a look and say, my family's most important. I have extreme gratitude for the health that I have in my family. And what do I want to do for the future? How am I going to make that impact? For me, in the past 5 years, I've been really focused on helping other entrepreneurs, advising small startup businesses, and really focusing on the Latina and Latino specifically, because it's something that obviously I'm passionate about, but I wasn't always, but I am now. And I have been, to be able to really be a part of and a voice to be able to help raise other people and to help show younger generations what they can be as well. I am one of 6 kids. And I don't tell this story lightly because it's not one I share very often. But I'm the second of six. My older sister is a judge in San Diego. I have a sister right beneath me who is an attorney in Utah, in Salt Lake City, another sister who's a PhD professor at Penn State, another sister who's a very accomplished photographer, and a brother who's an entrepreneur. Out of those, I had three that were Ivy League school. I didn't go to an Ivy League. I went to Texas Tech University. I made things work out for myself. I have been an entrepreneur. I have been leading businesses. I am a CEO. I am Latina. I am first generation. And I didn't have all that same level of education that so many other people have had. But I've learned, I've had continuous learning. I believe in continuing education, where it's not that you have to keep going to school, but you keep learning yourself and you keep schooling yourself. So that's through, I spend 2 hours in the morning reading, catching up, and it's much more than that in terms of throughout the day and the evenings as well. But I'm constantly learning, constantly looking, trying to push myself forward and really look and see what's going to happen. I love business. I love driving business. So to me, it's really exciting to be able to read about that. It's not for everybody, but it is for me. But because of my experience and because I've been able to do and be where I am right now in my career and in my life, I did that because I didn't let no's stop me. And if there's any lesson that I've learned, it is about that. You're going to have no's. You're going to have those bumps, big bumps, small bumps. You're going to have them. Being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster ride every day. Some days you're high in the morning and low in the afternoon, and other times you're doing really well for a month and then you have an off month. It's a roller coaster ride. But believing in yourself and being kind to yourself about it, because you're doing the best that you can do, is the most important, one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. As a woman, as a mother, I have 3 children. I had 3 children under the age of 4. I was getting divorced. I had to really look at myself and say, can I have this life? Can I have it all? I'm not a believer that you can have it all. I think you can have as much as you want at various points in time. And you have to look at it on a daily basis and say, did I do and have everything I wanted today? Was I able to be the best at something today? I just have never been able to understand how you can have everything when you want to be a professional. You want to keep growing in your career. You want to be a mom and be there for your children. You want to be a great partner or wife or a sibling and a daughter and everything else. It's a lot. It's a lot for all of us. So one of the things that I have said is that at different phases in your life, you're going to look at yourself and determine what is the most important thing for you. And when my kids were young and I was going through a divorce, the most important thing for me was to take a step aside from the corporate life. And that's when I started the business with Selena Gomez. And as an entrepreneur, I was able to be at home with my kids for dinner at night. I was able to be there to understand and see what their faces after school and understand what was happening with their classmates. And I have 2 girls, so there's always a little drama there. And it was the right thing for me. Everybody's going to have a different choice. Everybody will have different decisions they make, but you can pivot. You can make those changes. I certainly have had to. Some cases I really felt that I had to. I had no choice. And in other cases, I wanted to. Now with this year, with the pandemic, I spent more than 2 years as the CEO of Diane von Furstenberg, a very iconic fashion house, DVF. She's one of the most iconic designers in the industry and a great joy to work with. And the pandemic changed all of that. It forced us to take a look at the business and say, what's this going to be? And for them as a family run business, it was also, what are they going to do and how they want her legend. What do they want the legend to be? And how do they want to continue to go forward with that? So business changed and I left there mid-June. And I also had to look and say, what do I want to do? How am I going to make an impact? How am I going to continue to try to make a difference? How can I help others? And how can I really do something that's exciting that doesn't require potentially selling $500 dresses or other things that may not be the most important thing today based on where we are in our life and our culture. So I have just recently also decided to pivot again. And while I've pivoted from being a corporate to an entrepreneur to back to corporate again in different leadership roles and in fashion and retail, now I'm actually moving into tech. So between technology, which is really obviously driving a lot of data and a lot of analytics and a lot of insight into business. It's doing that for fashion. And so for me, it's about trying to continue to move forward, trying to keep moving ahead and pushing the envelope a bit more so that I can always try to help others also move ahead and move further into the future and be a little bit more advanced and innovative in their thinking and accelerating what we know is there. Like I've known for the last 12 years that digital was going to be important. And I've been moving myself in that direction by learning again through reading, through learning other things. And now I have the ability to continue to hone those skills and do it in a way that is leading an organization and working with other retailers as well. And why do I tell you that? Because I think it's important to know that you're not stuck. You're not stuck. And no matter what, some things may happen, and I get calls or emails from people and they'll ask me questions and they'll feel like they are stuck. And there's always a way to get out of it. And I can tell you that I certainly feel like I'm a testament to trying to navigate through change and not always doing it really well, but doing it and making it happen. And I think that just really believing in yourself more than anything else, you can't expect others to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. I've spent a lot of time really trying to make sure that, even though I've always believed in myself, just trying to make sure that I did it in a way as well that kept me going. Because you're gonna, again, like I said, you'll have those down days, but you'll keep going and you'll keep pushing, and just know that there's a lot of support out there. One of the most exciting things that I've seen in the last few years is really these communities and these groups and organizations that get developed, especially for women and really focused on women and helping women. And there's so much more support now than I ever felt that there was at any point in time in my career. Women supporting other women, building each other up. It's incredible. It's so great to see this happening now. And it's not that there's not competition, but there's less competition because we're helping support each other. And I think that's really fantastic and a great way forward for us across the board. So I would leave you with that note to help support others, to build each other up, to be kind to yourself about what you do, and to know that there are always options and never take no as the final answer. Thanks so much for having me, Richard.